Welcome to another tutorial. In this tutorial, we are going to create these radial light particles. Let's begin by adding two icosphere. To do that, let's close this, go to File, New and General, or the shortcut buttons are Ctrl N or F4, and select General. Let's delete the default cube by hitting X and delete, and add two icosphere. Let's add the first one, Shift A, Mesh and icosphere, and let's add the second one. You can either Shift A or come to Add menu here. By clicking on the Add menu, select Mesh and icosphere. We will drag the second icosphere. Now how do we know that it's the second icosphere? It is highlighted by icosphere 001. To do that, let's hit G to grab and Y to move along Y-axis. Or you can come and click this move button here, and when you click on the mesh, it has these handles that you can move either along Y-axis, X-axis or Z-axis. Now this icosphere will be where our particles will be emitted from. Now let's add the emitters by coming to Properties panel here, going to Particle Properties, click this plus button. What it does is it adds the particles to our icosphere. So when we play this animation, you can see the particles are emitted from the icosphere. We want to increase the emission number of the particles to 10,000, and let's increase the number of particles. You can see when we play this, the number of particles has been increased to 10,000. Now, we don't want the particles to just drop down straight down because of the gravity. So let's put off the gravity. To do that, let's go to Fill Weight and click Gravity and type it 0, or just click the slider and slide it down to 0. Again, when we play the animation, this is what's going to happen. That is exactly what we want the particles to move in different direction. Now, we want to change this hello, which is these particles are in right now, to the icosphere, the second icosphere that we have added into the scene. Let's do that by coming to Render. Under Render As, change the Render As to Object, and under the Object, select this, click on this little square button here and select icosphere 001. Zoom in, you can see the particles has changed to the icosphere. Now the particles are too large, so let's decrease the size down. To decrease the size down, click on the emitters, which is this first icosphere. Under Render again and Scale, let's scale down to 0.10, and now the particles has decreased in size. Again, when we play that, you can see the particles are smaller than before. We want the particles to move in cycle. To do that, we are going to add a Bezier cycle. Let's add a Bezier cycle by coming up here, Add and Curve and Cycle. We scale the Bezier cycle by pressing down S for scaling and type down 2 to scale out. You can also resize from here, where this little menu pop up. But when you increase that and you click anywhere on the scene, this menu will be disappear. Okay, so let's try to play this again and see. Now we want the particles to move around along with this Bezier cycle. In order to do that, let's add a field force so that the force will force the particles to move around the cycle. To do that, let's select the Bezier cycle, come to the physics properties here, click on the physics properties, and we want to apply a force field. So let's click on the force field, and now we have applied the force field to our particles. Now we want the force field to follow the cycle. To do that, let's change the type here to Curve Guide and change the minimum distance to 5. Let's put it to 4. And when we play the animation, you can see the particle just move around the icosphere. Why? Because the icosphere is right at the center. So we have to drag this out of the Bezier curve. Let's click on the Y handle or Y-axis here and drag our particles or the icosphere out of the Bezier curve. And when we play the animation again, this is what happening. It cycles around the Bezier curve. However, you notice that we have a huge round of particles moving around. The reason is because our icosphere is too large. So let's decrease the size down. To decrease the size down, let's hit S and scale it down somewhere around here. And then let's play the animation again. And you can see the particles has decreased. Again, we can decrease this down because that's not what we want. Let's decrease all the way down to this, or let's move down. And now when we play the animation, this is what's happening. So that's what we want. We can further scale the icosphere down more, the emitters down more. So let's do that. And again, when we play the animation, the thinner it gets. Okay, let's leave it here. And now it's time to apply some color. To do that, let's click on the shading editor here and make sure to select icosphere 001, because that is where we will apply the material to that icosphere, and it will emit it out from the particles because we have changed the particles to that icosphere. So let's do that now by creating a new nodes by clicking this add new material, and in here we have the default nodes, which is the material output and the principal base shader. We will not use the principal base shader, but we'll use an emission shader. So let's delete the principal base shader and add in an emission by Shift A, shader and emission. Click there. We're going to add an object import. So let's Shift A and type in sets OB and get object info. And let's now connect the nodes together. Connect the location to the color and emission to surface. And when we play the animation, this is what it's going to look like. So let's go to layout and play our animation. Why is it not colorful? Because we are not in material viewport or render viewport. So let's change to render viewport. And now we have a nice beautiful color. Let's go back again, play that animation. Okay, now we can increase the strength of the emitter by coming to shading again. Under the emission nodes, let's increase the strength to 10. And what it does is increases the strength of the emission. Let's go back to layout and click on the layout to come back here and play the animation again. I think we get it down to 5. Let's change the emission to 5. And that should be enough for now. Let's go to layout and play the animation. We want to delete the default light because the particles emitting their own light. So let's delete the light by selecting the light and delete that. Okay. And now let's set the walls scene by coming to wall properties, and under color, drag this all the way down to 0 or black. Now let's set the camera. To set the camera, I want to look down to the particles. So let's go to the top view by hitting 7 on our numpad, and now let's hold down Ctrl Alt and 0, and we are adding our camera. Let's keep the camera in place by pressing N to bring out the transform panel here, and go to view and click on camera to view. What it does is it locks the camera to the view, so when we scroll in and out, the cameras remain the same. Okay, let's bring back the panel again by hitting N to bring it out so that we have big space here to work around with. And now let's play again the animation. Let's try a render. Now it is very important to do one render before we go to compositing. So let's go to render, select render, use every default value there for the render settings, and come to render image and click render. We want to go to compositing and apply glare effect to these particles. So let's go to compositing and click use nodes. When we select the use nodes, we have the render layers and composite. Now if we did not render our image, this area will be just gray, but it is very important to render it before you come and use the compositing. Okay, so let's drag the composite out to this part here. Let's go to drag this out here, Let's add glare effect by coming to Shift A, filter and glare. Drag it in, placing it here, roll in back, move this a little bit better out and this to make room. Let's put it here and we will add a color balance. So Shift A and go to color and color balance. Okay, the last thing to add is the viewer. So Shift A and output and viewer. Let's remove this first. Let's connect image to the glare effect and glare effect to the image on the color balance and the image to the image of the composite and the image of the render layers. Let's put it to the viewer because that is what we're interested to see. So now we have the image at the background because we have the viewer node which display the image there for us, and change the streaks to goose and medium to high. Let's change the mix to 0.3 and threshold again to 0.3. And let's come to the color balance here. Increase the gain up a little bit here, increase the gamma up here and the lift up here. Make sure the factor decreased all the way down to 0. And let's save this first before we render it. Ctrl S for save or file, save as, and type a file name you want. Click save to save it. And now when we render it, this is what it looks like now. So if you want this, you can save this image by coming to image and save as and save that image. But that is not exactly what we want. We want this strike or the radius to go at an angle, not around cycle like what we are seeing now. So let's go back again to our layout, and in the layout or the viewport, let's select the Bezier cycle, click on the physics property, and in here where it says pre, let's type in 10. And what it does, it's allow the particles to move freely with the pause being applied to it to move along the cycle. Let's play the animation and see. Okay, so that is what we have now. There's one more settings that we need to add so that these particles don't fall down but they follow the cycle and flow in that direction. So let's do that by selecting the emitters, go to the particle properties and go to the physics. Under physics where it says forces, in dump, change that one to 1. Now what it does, it doesn't allow the particles to fall down but move in this direction and in the cycle. So let's play that and see. So there we have. Now the particles are moving at a curve on this direction and also they are moving in the cycle. Let's go to shading editor, select our icosphere, change the strength to 10 and come to the render properties and click on bloom, increase the intensity up to 7 or around 7 and 8. So our emitters is a little bit smaller, that is why the brightness is not that big. Select the emitters, come to the particle properties and go down to render and increase the scale up by 30 and make sure to uncheck this show emitter so that when we render the image, this emitter does not show on our render. Okay, let's try rendering it and see how it looks like now. And here we have our radial rays particles. So this is the end of our tutorial. Thank you for watching and make sure to subscribe to our channel so that you will be the first to notified when we upload new videos. See you next time.